So most of these wild and foraged foods are pretty seasonal, but the black walnuts that we showed you in the middle of the episode can be found year-round. So my recipe today is focusing on the walnut, and I'm going to show you how to make a walnut-crusted pork chop. I'm going to pair that with some whipped sweet potatoes. Now, most walnuts are used in sweet applications like brownies and cookies, so that's why I wanted to make sure that we focused in on something savory. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take about a cup of the black walnuts and put them in my food processor. I'm going to take about a tablespoon of rosemary. This is going to be a very aromatic crust for those pork chops. Fresh thyme leaves, 1 clove of garlic. Toss that in. And the last ingredient is panko. I always use panko when I'm oven frying, because you really can't replicate that crunch with anything else. Okay, I'm just gonna pulse this. Let's check that out. Add a little bit of salt and some pepper. And there you go. So to my black walnut crumb mixture, I'm going to zest 1 orange. My last ingredient is a bit of cayenne, just to give a little bit of heat. I'm just going to stir this up, and then we're going to coat the pork chops. Next step is just to add a little bit of flour to a plate. Just a couple of eggs. We're going to very simply coat these pork chops. And the purpose of having the flour and the egg is so that this wonderful breading can adhere. You want your pork chops to be bone in. You're going to end up having much more tender pork chops if you have that bone. They won't overcook. So just lightly flour on all sides. Dip them in the egg mixture, and then transfer it over to the breading. You want to press that in so you get a really nice coating. You want to make sure that the breading, when you fry it, doesn't fall off, which is why all that glue of the flour and the egg is part of this recipe. All right, we've got the coating finished, and now to the frying pan. So I've been preheating my pan, and I put some grapeseed oil in here, and I used grapeseed specifically because it has a much higher smoke point or flash point, so when I'm cooking the pork chops at a higher temp, it won't burn. Gently put your pork chops into that oil. We're just gonna brown them on both sides and then transfer them over here to this plate. And you really want to bake the chops in the frying pan in which they're cooked, because we're going to make a pan sauce. This is about what you want it to look like, nice and golden. You don't want it to cook all the way through because, again, you're gonna bake them in the oven. What you wanna do is just get a nice crust on that exterior. These are ready. They're nice and golden brown on both sides. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick these in the oven. While my chops are in the oven, I'm just gonna mince up 2 shallots and chop up some of this parsley. These are beautiful. The crust is perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and start my pan sauce. So I'm gonna heat this up just on medium-low, and then I'm gonna deglaze the pan with some dry white wine. I'm gonna be using this Vignoles from Robler, and then I'm gonna add in some of those shallots I chopped up and the parsley. So you might be wondering what I'm doing with this humongous hunk of butter. I'm gonna melt it down and brown the butter, and it's gonna be added to the sweet potatoes. So this morning, before everybody came to set up the kitchen for the show, I went ahead and roasted these sweet potatoes. All I did was wrap them in some tin foil and pop them in the oven at 350. These roast for about an hour and a half or so. You want to roast them until they're nice and soft, and then they have to cool, because you want to do exactly this which is take off the skins. So I have pulled my brown butter off of the stove and I have my maple syrup at the ready. I'm gonna go ahead and start this on medium speed and allow it to whip and get nice and fluffy. I'm gonna add in just a little bit of butter. Now I'm gonna put in that maple syrup, just a little bit. And this happens to be from Indiana. If you're curious to meet the maker of this maple syrup, you should watch last season. About 1/4 cup, you don't want too much or it'll just overwhelm the flavor of the potatoes. I'm gonna whip this up and then we're gonna be finished. Nice and fluffy, it's beautiful. I'm just gonna spoon these onto a plate to serve alongside those gorgeous pork chops. So there you have it, a perfect fall meal that honestly would be good any time of the year. The sweet potatoes and the black walnuts marry perfectly together because of that sweet depth of flavor. And I am pairing this dish with a dry rosé from Adam Kukta. Rosé is an absolutely perfect match for pork, and this dry rosé is lovely. So cheers to things that are wild and foraged. I'll see you next time.